Try again. How many times can the College Football Playoff Committee continue to disrespect Arizona State?
You are Locked On Sun Devils, your daily podcast on the Arizona State Sun Devils.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Sun Devils podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Richie Bradshaw. I will be your guide for everything Arizona State Sun Devils. Shout out my everydayers who are here every day, and thanks to all of you for making us your first listen of the day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers place a $5 bet and get started with $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm not going to lie to you. I am pretty pissed. I think that's the nicest way that I can put this. I am not happy. I am disappointed. I feel disrespected. And I continue to feel like ASU is not given their flowers, given the credit that they have earned, and so much. Because if you did not see, the latest college football playoff poll came out last night. I actually had a little live going on. If you didn't check it out, I suggest checking it out about halfway through. I think around the 16-minute mark, because we had to wait because there was a college basketball game going on. But when we finally were able to get there, I thought the reaction was hilarious in retrospect because of how upset I was. And my goodness, it was hard to not say any no words. But I've had a little bit of time to sit back and think about it. And it turns out I'm still mad. ASU, number 16 in the playoff poll. I'm going to call it what it is. That's disrespectful. That's where we're going to start this conversation, is disrespectful. And later on in the show, we will talk about why ASU should be higher, and then if they win out the season, where they should be. According to me, and my opinion is the only one that matters, according to me, this is a disrespectful ranking. Here's why. First of all, this has been an ongoing issue for all of this season. ASU is a 9-win football team. They have spent 2 weeks ranked. The first week they were ranked was 2 weeks ago. They were number 21 after beating the number 17 team in the nation handedly on the road. Number 21. Then they beat BYU. BYU, the number 1 team in the Big 12. They beat them. I don't think you could say they beat them handedly, unfortunately. You could have, but you really let them back in that game, and you had no business doing that. So, yeah, still won, still beat them, and you moved up to 14 in the AP poll, which gave me a little bit of hope that maybe the College Football Playoff Committee would also give you some props. Now, do I think we're better than 14? I do. But, with the disrespect we've been getting all year, it's a step in the right direction. Well, the playoff committee didn't agree, and they put us 16. 16. That's baffling to me. 16? I don't know how you justify that. Been 2 losses all year. Both on the road, one to Texas Tech, one to Cincinnati. Cincinnati, not a great loss. Texas Tech, that's a quality football team. Other than that, I mean, you've beat teams you were supposed to beat. You have 3 ranked wins this year. You beat Utah, which I know you can go back and you can be like, oh, Utah's not good. Okay, well, they were ranked at the time. So don't know what to tell you. You can't argue that. You beat K-State on their home field, and you beat BYU. So there's 2 really good ranked wins against 2 teams that were previously contending for the conference championship game. That's 2 pretty good wins. And by the way, K-State, BYU, back-to-back ranked wins. So you are telling me with back-to-back ranked wins and a 9-win football program, the best you can do is 16. This has been, and in fairness, it has been disrespectful to the Big 12 all year long. Here's the funny thing. When ASU left the Pac-12, I thought we were leaving that behind. I thought we were leaving the disrespect behind because nobody respected the Pac-12. We got to the Big 12. I was like, okay, this is a conference people respect. Apparently not. And maybe it's because the Pac-12 is not around anymore. So now the Big 12 is the punching bag. I don't get it. Does ASU need to go to the SEC in order to actually get the respect they deserve? I don't get it. And it's really frustrating that ASU consistently has to constantly prove themselves in ways that other teams don't have to. Yeah, you should always be winning football games. You should always be proving yourselves. That's how you get ranked. But then there's some teams that are ranked for the sake of being ranked. Sorry for the stray bullet here, but why is Mizzou consistently being regarded as one of the top 25 teams when they're just not good? They are finally out of the college football. No, they're not. They're 21. There you go. Missouri's number 21. Why? Why is Missouri number 21? Do you know how many teams I would take to beat Mizzou right now? I would look at the teams behind them. UNLV, Illinois, K-State, Colorado. I'd take all of them to beat Mizzou. Totally off track. It's a lot with the SEC, though, that we see those teams get too much credit. Ole Miss and Bama are ranked ahead of ASU. I would take ASU to beat both of them. I said Ole Miss? Yes. Ole Miss, Bama, and South Carolina. That was one I was missing. I'd take ASU to beat all three. But ASU doesn't play in the SEC. And that's what's constantly going to leave them disrespected. You are first in the Big 12 right now. By the way, if the regular season ended today, ASU is first place in the Big 12 after being picked to finish last. They were picked to finish 16 out of 16, and now they are 1 out of 16. So fighting disrespect all year. Even before the season started, ASU was getting disrespected, and it just doesn't end. They have a clear path to the Big 12 Conference Championship game. More clear than anyone else. ASU wins, and there's a scenario where they don't advance. Again, I'm not sure if it's Colorado losing or if it's BYU losing, but all four teams that are contending, the last one being Iowa State, they should all win. And when they all win, ASU is punching their ticket. So the easiest path to get there is ASU. I want to say ESPN gave them, oh God, I don't even want to guess. I'm going to look it up here because I was looking at this. They gave ASU a 71% chance to make it to the Big 12 title game. And that's about as clear as it's going to get, as straightforward as it's going to get. And again, I do want to mention, and I do apologize for the strays. If you are one of the teams that I am about to talk about, is not a personal shot at you. It's not even really a personal shot at your team. It's just the fact that ASU would beat them. Looking at the teams ahead of them, there's a lot of teams I would take ASU over. I'd take ASU to beat South Carolina. I would take ASU to beat Ole Miss. I would take ASU to beat Alabama. ASU Clemson. That's a really interesting one. I would push right now. I think it would depend where the game is. I think you beat Boise State. It wouldn't be easy. I think you do. I think you beat Indy. Oh my goodness. I think you beat Indiana. SMU is a tough game. I would push on that one as well. I would push on Tennessee. Georgia, I don't think you win that game. Miami, we'd see. And then Notre Dame is the last team that's not in your top four. There's a lot of teams that ASU could beat outright or that they could compete with. That's the most frustrating part for me. And that's the difference between why ASU should be ranked higher and why they shouldn't be ranked higher, is because they can beat these guys. And you know what? That's a really good transition to the next part of the show as we talk about why ASU should be ranked higher the number 16. That's coming up next. This is the Locked On Sun Devils podcast. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Get ready to tackle the NFL action and all your sports action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers, you bet $5, you'll get $150 back in bonus bets if your $5 bet wins. That can be on anything, by the way. It can be a money line, a player prop, a spread, whatever. If you want to place a live bet, you can do that as well. And FanDuel Sportsbooks app will give you everything you need to place a live bet on the NFL all in one place. If you get a hunch in the middle of the game, check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page you're placing your bets. You'll feel way more confident that way. So just visit FanDuel.com today and join up. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 wins. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Wherever you get your shows, like, subscribe, turn on notifications. Thanks again for making Locked On Sun Devils your first listen of the day. All right, let's go ahead and move on. Why should ASU be ranked higher? Well, I'm glad you asked, because that's what I would like to spend the next segment of this podcast talking about. We'll go ahead and pick it up where we left off. And that's that ASU can beat a lot of the teams ahead of them. That should be a tiebreaker. In fact, that's a tiebreaker more often than not. You would think. That's one of the reasons why the playoff committee made the decision last year to leave Florida State, a perfect 13-0 team, out of the playoff. Because Jordan Travis got injured and they decided, Florida State can't beat any of these teams. Well, they were right. And props to them for making that decision, because it wasn't popular and it was one that upset a lot of people, not just Florida State fans. But they did what they had to do. They ultimately made the right decision. But now you've got a team in Arizona State that can beat these teams ahead of them. And you're so focused on worshiping the ground that the SEC walks on. And it's all that matters to you is we got to boost them up. We got to show them how much we love them. ESPN got to feed into them, and that's got to affect the college football committee too. It's, I'll say it, it's pathetic. It's truly pathetic how much we want to consistently place the SEC atop of everybody else. I don't get it. Because again, there are 3 SEC teams in a row that are ahead of ASU. And I'm taking ASU to beat all 3 of them. ASU versus South Carolina. Give me ASU. ASU versus Ole Miss. Give me ASU. ASU versus Alabama. Give me ASU. None of those 3 teams turned out to be what we thought they were going to be. South Carolina, good way. They ended up very much exceeding expectations. Ole Miss was supposed to be a playoff contender. Bama was supposed to be a championship contender. They aren't. South Carolina, very good, tough team. That would be a slugfest. I would take ASU. Ole Miss, still super talented, just super beatable. Bama, super talented. My goodness, are they as inconsistent as it comes. ASU's beating those teams. And now, sure, if you put them on the road, if you send me to Columbia, if you send me to Oxford, if you send me to Tuscaloosa, different games. But that's the case for everything. If you were to send me to Happy Valley for Penn State, I got some stuff to say about Penn State coming up. Then it's a different game. If you send me to Athens to play Georgia, that's different. If you send me to Eugene to play Oregon, that's different. But it's the same vice versa. Bama could be super confident playing Arizona State at home. But if Bama had to go across the country to Tempe, that is a different football game. It is a different football game. It's not treated the same, though. Nobody looks at it that way. People will look at it and they will go, yeah, well, ASU can't win on the road. And it's like, okay, we'll send someone to Tempe then. We'll beat them. We've proven we can beat teams all year. Perfect at home, 6-0. Your 2 losses. One of them super early in the season, which last I checked doesn't seem to affect anyone, because why is no one talking about Notre Dame's first loss of the year to NIU? You'll have some people that want to critique it, but if you want to critique it against Arizona State, well, it doesn't matter. Texas Tech, better football team than NIU. And yet, Notre Dame's number 5. ASU is number 16. Shouldn't be that big of a discrepancy. I don't think so. Let's look at Notre Dame's schedule, too. Way easier than ASU's. This is just so frustrating to see this. And ASU's just playing as good as anyone right now, man. How many teams ahead of ASU would definitively beat them? Like, it wouldn't be close. You would take the opposing team's money line. You wouldn't think twice about it. You wouldn't care if it's in Tempe, in their home state, or in a neutral site. How many of these teams ahead of them would you take to definitively beat ASU? I would say Oregon, Ohio State, Georgia, probably Texas. I know that they haven't played a great schedule, but that's still a great football team. That might be it. I think there's really only 4 teams that I look at and I go, yeah, no, ASU doesn't beat them. Just about everyone else, I think ASU could beat, or they would flat out beat them. Penn State, I teed them up. ASU is waxing Penn State. It's not close. Notre Dame, that's a good football team. I think ASU is able to beat them. I think they're able to beat them. Miami, I think ASU is able to beat them. Tennessee, able to beat them. SMU, able. Indiana, I like Indiana. I am not an Indiana hater. Well, they don't have a good schedule. Play the teams in front of you. And they crushed the teams in front of them. Yeah, they lost to Ohio State. They're not Ohio State. No one was ever expecting them to. So, yeah, Indiana's a good team. I would still take ASU over them. I would take ASU over Boise. Clemson would be fun. That's a really interesting one. I think Clemson is really underrated. Bama, still a good football team. They just aren't Bama this year. Give me ASU. Give me ASU over Ole Miss. Give me Ole Miss. Give me ASU over South Carolina. So 4 teams that I would say probably definitively beat you. And then Penn State, Notre Dame, Miami, Tennessee, SMU, Clemson. 6 games that I think could go either way. I don't know. Feels like ASU should be a little higher up, I would say. And my closing argument here, unless you want to talk about how a first place Power 4 conference team should not be behind 3-loss SEC teams, that's up to you. Here's my biggest thing. And I know that the College Football Playoff Committee cares about these more than anything else in the whole world. Are you ready? Here's what it is. The College Football Playoff Committee wants narratives. That's it. They want narratives. What can we spin to be able to generate attention, to be able to generate conversation and intrigue to tune into these football games? There's a reason the SEC is so beloved, right? There's a lot of good football teams in there. I totally understand that. But that doesn't mean that they are always deserving. But the playoff committee would tell you otherwise, because everybody loves it watching SEC football. People love to hate watch SEC football. It's easy money. It's easy money. You're telling me if Bama made the playoff as number 12, they would be one of the most watched, if not the most watched, first 4 playoff games. That would be it. If they played Ohio State, number 5, that is the most watched playoff game. Number 5 versus number 12, because it's Bama versus Ohio State. They love narratives. They love narratives. They love narratives, and they love big name programs. Well, ASU will eventually be a big name program. Remember that whole sleeping giant thing we've been talking about? Yeah, well, there's a reason why. If you want a narrative, I got a handful for you. First of all, Kenny Dillingham, the youngest head coach in college football, 34 years old. Youngest head coach college football, 34 years old. He has already taken ASU to new heights. Argument number 2. ASU just got done with NCAA sanctions, violations, suspensions, all of that. And deservedly so. ASU needed to be hit with those punishments. What they did was wrong in more than one way, not just breaking the rules. That was ethically a very bad thing that ASU did. They deserved it. So why is that a big deal? Because it's a narrative. People are going to look, and they're going to go, ASU's here? Hold on. Wasn't ASU just imposing a self-bowl ban? Like, how is ASU in the playoff? They only won 3 games over the last year. Well, there's number 3. ASU has consecutive 3-win seasons. And now all of a sudden, they have a chance to go 11-2, make the playoff. They've more than tripled their win count from a year ago. And they have a chance to double their win count from the last 2 years combined. That's insane. Do you realize the trajectory that ASU is on and you don't want to talk about it? To me, that's just failure on your part if you don't want to capitalize on a young and up-and-coming program. Final argument. This is not a fluky ASU team. They're playing very good. They're playing with passion, with pride, and with a culture that has been established by Kenny Dillingham and has been executed by the players. This is not a fluky team. This is a team that is set to compete for years. As long as everything stays in place, as long as Kenny Dillingham's not going anywhere, they just locked up their coordinators, 3 of their most important players, Ben Coleman, Justin Wadley, and Shimon Mateer announced they are returning yesterday, Tuesday. You have Sam Levitt returning. You have other weapons returning on offense. The defense is going to be good again. This is a team that is ready to contend for multiple years. So you know what the best thing you can do is? Hype them up year 1. And then when year 2 rolls around, you go, hey, remember that team we put in the playoff last year? Yeah, they're looking pretty good again. Maybe we discovered them. That's what you want to tell yourself. Sure. You discovered ASU. Why not? But these are narratives, right? These are the things that the playoff committee cares so much about. How can we spin a story? It's one of the reasons why Boise State is a near lock for the playoff. Not just because they're a really good football team, because they are a really good football team. Sure, I would take ASU to beat them. That's not an easy game. By one player alone, Ashton Jeanty is the best player in college football. But there's a reason why Boise State is getting more love than Tulane, or than what Army was getting, or what UNLV is getting. It's because of Ashton Jeanty. Ashton Jeanty, a Heisman finalist, and probably the winner of the Heisman, plays for that football team. What is the best way to get people to watch a football game, a college football game? You put the Heisman Trophy winner on their TV. Even better, it's a G5 team. Wow, did the intrigue just get bigger? A G5 team has a Heisman Trophy winner and they're in the playoff. A lot of people are going to tune into that. Narratives matter when it comes to the college football playoff committee. They have made that abundantly clear time and time again. So if you want a narrative for Arizona State, then here's your narrative. ASU is an up-and-coming team with the youngest head coach in college football. They are built to last. They are built to become one of the better teams in college football. If they win out, where should they go? That's coming up next. This is a Locked On Sun Devils podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. One last time, thanks for making Locked On Sun Devils your first listen of the day. If ASU wins out, where should they go? Well, let's start with how ASU gets there. Again, ASU is a 9-2 football team right now. They currently have 3 ranked wins, 2 that matter. I understand what you're saying. At the end of the day, it is 3 ranked wins, but I also hear you when you tell me that one of the ranked wins was against a bad football team. Totally get it. End of the day, it's still a ranked win, is what it is. You have 3 ranked wins as a 9-2 football team. If you went out to win the conference, you will go to 11-2. You will now have 4 ranked wins, 3 that matter, because you would be defeating a ranked team in the Big 12 championship game, whether that's number 25 Colorado, whether that is number 19 BYU, or number 18 Iowa State. That is a ranked win. That is also a championship win. And a championship matters a lot in these playoffs. There's a reason why they will take 5 of the highest ranked conference champions and put them in the playoff. And ASU winning the Big 12 is a big one. It's a Power 4 conference. I saw comments yesterday, by the way, or last night, I suppose, that were saying the Big 12 is not a power conference. That's literally not true. You can insult the conference all you want. It is literally a Power 4 conference. I don't know what to tell you. I understand if you want to hate on the Big 12, that's on you. But it is a power conference. That's not a discussion. That's not a debate. That is a fact. Anyways, so ASU wins out 11-2. Conference title, a Power 4 conference title, 4 ranked wins. With all of that in mind, I said this on the live last night. So if you tuned in, you know exactly what I'm about to say. And here it is. ASU wins out 11-2, Big 12 champions. They should be no worse than 8. No worse than 8. And that is with the assumption that they don't get a bye. The top 4 championship teams will get a bye. That's going to be the Big 10 champion, the SEC champion, a very good chance for the ACC champion, and then a toss-up between the G5, whether that's Mountain West or I think Tulane is Conference USA if they somehow manage to get in, or the Big 12. So if ASU is able to be ranked higher than Boise State by the end of the year, ASU will get that bye week. If they're not, like an example, if ASU is number 8 and BYU, or not BYU, Boise State is number 7, then Boise's getting that bye week, and it is what it is. But then that has to be the lowest ASU can be. I'm sorry, they can't be lower. If for no other reason than if you want to get politics involved, let's get politics involved. Let's get politics involved. Let's see how the world reacts to you placing a Power 4 conference champion lower or low enough to not host a playoff game. Let's see how that works. And you tell me how that goes for you. Because it's not going to go the way you think. There's going to be a lot of angry people. And I promise you, it wouldn't just be Arizona State. If Arizona State wins the Big 12 conference and they are left out of the top 8, so 9, 10, 11, 12, sure, they're in the playoff. They are going on the road. It is not just going to be Arizona State fans, alumni, players, coaches, students, etc. that are going to be upset. It's going to be a lot of the media that is upset too. How could you possibly take a Power 4 team and place them behind the 3rd place team in the SEC? An example. Because we all know that Texas, Georgia, or Tennessee, whoever wins is going to have a bye. We know that whoever is 2nd place is going to host a home game. If you have a 3rd place team hosting a conference champion, that is a problem. That is a big, big problem. I understand the flip side of the coin. Richie, the better team should be ranked higher. And more often than not, you're absolutely right. And more often than not, I would agree with you. But the biggest problem here is there are going to be politics involved with it. And if you want to bring politics to the table, then let's bring them to the table. Let's lay all of our cards out. I am totally good with ranking these teams from best to worst for your 1 through 12, your playoff. In fact, that's the way I think most playoffs should be. But that's not the case. If you are giving bye weeks to 4 of your conference champions, then the 5th one needs to host a home game. If there are other leagues, no examples need to be given, that are allowed to host a home game because they won their division or they won their conference, why should that be any different in college football? You won't get a disagreement out of me. Again, to emphasize, I do believe the best teams should be ranked in order, but that's not what this is. You are giving priority to conference winners. Boise State, great football team. And I'm really sorry if there's Boise State listeners who are listening to this. I promise you it's not directed at you and it's not meant to be disrespectful at all. And I know that it can come across that way. So I really am sorry, Boise State. I really am. But Boise State should not be number 4 because they aren't better than Georgia or Ohio State, who are going to be, at worst, 2nd place in their conference. They're not better than Oregon. They're not better than Texas. They are, I would probably take Tennessee over them. That is 5 teams definitively I would take over them. And they're going to be ranked ahead of them because they win a conference championship. So you can't look me in the eye. You can't tell me that ASU should be ranked where they are because teams are better than them when a G5 team is going to get a playoff because they were ranked higher. That's ludicrous. It's a flawed system all around. Am I appreciative the playoff is 12? Sure. I definitely am. And I think that this matters. But at the same time, we continue to have this super flawed system. And it's the flawed system that you have created, College Football Playoff Committee. It's the flawed system that you have made that has caused people like me and the fans and other people in the media and alumni and players and coaches, everyone around the country who cares about college football. This is why people get so upset. This is why people get so passionate and animated. I don't like being pissed off. I like to come on here and have a good time and shoot the stuff with you guys. This is a more serious episode. I've been very frustrated for the 31 minutes that this has been going on. But this is the hand that you have dealt me. This is the hand that you have dealt Arizona State with a big smile and a grin on your face. And you said, "You're welcome. Look at us. We put you in the top 25. Oh, we put you at 16. Wow. We're going to put you at number 12 because you're currently projected to be the final conference champion. Good for you, ASU. Good for you. Here's your participation medal." That's what you're telling me. So pick a lane. Are you going to reward the best teams, or are you going to reward the teams that win their conference? Placing ASU at 12 just because they won their conference, that's weak. That's weak. Especially because they should be top 12 entering this conversation. That's where they should have been tonight. AP gave us 14. I said 14 feels like it should be the floor. I was hoping for higher. They gave us 16. This is the problem I have. What do you guys think? Are you as angry as I am? Was 16 perfect? Was it terrible? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. You can hit me up on Twitter at Richie Bradshaw36. The podcast is there at LO_Sun Devils. Wherever you get your podcast, though, hit like, hit subscribe, turn on notifications wherever you're getting your shows. Stay in touch by following me on Twitter at Richie Bradshaw36 and the podcast at LO_Sun Devils. I appreciate each and every single one of you for tuning in, making us your first listen of the day. And of course, a special shout out to my everydayers who are here every day. We will be back again tomorrow. Once again, I do not have a specific game plan for tomorrow's episode. That is to be decided. Friday will be the game day preview for Arizona. That's going up on a Friday because kickoff is 1:30 on Saturday. And I have a special surprise for you guys. Not going to say anything more than that. So make sure those notifications are on and you're subscribed so you can find out what that is. I'll see you guys later, but until next time, you keep it locked right here on Locked On Sun Devils.